This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Even if you die and go to hell, there's nothing to worry about because you'll find many of your friends there. How would you interpret that? What do you think Raila Odinga meant?
Thank you very much. The proverb basically can be interpreted in two perspectives. The religious aspect of it, and of course the natural phenomena of our existence. Because one, he has given hope that indeed we shouldn't be dwelling a lot on fear from death. And therefore, death is a natural thing and it will always come and people should always prepare it. And one thing that we do not know is that when death occurs, the person who dies do not actually know that he has died. As a medic, I mean, that's what happens, yeah? And the other aspect is the aspect of religiosity. What you have done for yourself in this world, according to your beliefs, is the one which takes or determines your destiny. And the determination of your destiny is either two. Either you go to hell or you go to heaven. And based on how you have weighed your books, you know, they are the books that you build up from the day you start your life until the day of your demise. Meaning then, the hope is that if you have been a good person, then of course you will go to heaven. If you have been a bad person, according to the scripts, you will go to hell. Again, you are not the only one. Everybody carries his own cross, as they always say it. And therefore, I think the perspective of the proverb is that we should be prepared for the future as well.
Yeah, indeed, we should. Well, to be prepared for the future seems like something that everybody's doing in Kenya at the moment. There's a by-election coming up on Thursday. And we see this because certain things have happened. That through the different positions, whether they be senatorial, member of parliament, or MCA, this cuts across those three sections. I think those are the only three that we're dealing with in these 24 elections. That there were folks who then vacated those positions due to natural attrition. There were those who were promoted or to cabinet secretaries. And so that left positions of member of parliament in different areas then vacant. And according to the constitution, then we must have a by-election. It should have been 90 days after those positions were declared vacant, according to the constitution, but we're looking at a year plus for a lot of them. Many things happened in between. There was no IEBC per se, and there needed to be an establishment of a new IEBC. But many are looking at this and they're saying that this is a dress rehearsal for 2027. Dr. Hassan, would you agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with them. The reason being is that first and foremost, we went into a period of unconstitutionality or constitutional crisis. That is, if the constitution says seats must be vacant within, seats once they become vacant must be filled within 3 months. So, we didn't do that, and others stayed almost 1.5 years or 2 years. That's already constitutionally not right. Secondly, the current by-election some of the position came as a result of rearrangement of the government. And therefore, meaning then, the rearrangement was based on the fact that if we pick this from here and place him in a cabinet position, then we will be in a position to secure the seat again for the government. So it was a way of broadening their way of having more people in the loyalty of the government. And therefore, the bottom line is that at the moment now, for the elections, there is the battle for supremacy that is going on, both from individuals, particularly the former deputy president, who has been ousted out of the office by the current government. Secondly, is the supremacy for those who have their position has been replaced. I mean, they have been picked from their position and they want to replace it. And of course, they should replace that particular position with their loyalties. Therefore, the concept of the current by-election is not about actually the by-election on bringing leaders on board. It's about who is who in that political field. Secondly, is the 2027, what we call it, definition of who is holding the ground. So the 2027 politics dominates significantly in the current by-election and determine who actually holds the grassroots voters. And that could be also another dominant thing. But again, the third one, which I will probably need to mention, is the fact that if the current government or the office, the ruling party does not secure seats within the areas like, for example, Mbere, North, Kasipul, which they have placed ODM candidate there, which is assumed to be part of the government at the moment on the broad-based arrangement. Where do we call the Western Malabar seat? It will going to tint part of the leaders' reputations and, of course, their ability to hold the ground. For example, in the Western, the speaker will have a lot of issues if he loses that seat.
Why?
The reason being...
His position is not political. His position is governmental.
Okay, I totally agree with you. That is on the scripts. But in Kenya, all positions are political. Where did you find a speaker of the National Assembly standing in a political party podium speaking for the government when he is supposed to be the one checking that particular government?
Because we don't follow the Constitution.
That is the point. And therefore, we will come to how do some of the things are being accepted to just happen, and how some realities are on the ground. The reality in the ground is that the position for national speakers has become also one of the political grounds for the political field for any other politician. And therefore, that is why it matters. If he loses the grip of the Western political influence, then of course he may also be having issues whether he will get back his seat as a speaker or not.
Daktari, I want to look at it in terms of the by-elections that do exist right now and the powers that do play right now. And I look at it from a different perspective, in the sense that as we speak right now, it is all about political expediency. It is all about we have to retain power. It is not about having the best candidate who will come in to serve for Kenyans. So the current by-elections that do exist is, one would say, it is a training ground for 2027. It is not about Banisa, who've not had a member of parliament for 1 year and there's a lot that needs to be done. It's about we are the ones that matter today, and 2027 is our goal, right?
That is absolutely right. I mean, one important thing that we need to register is the fact that it's about the political party. One is from the opposition, who are trying to see whether they are able to have influence on the grassroots level. The other one is the supremacy of the ruling party, to show that we are now currently ruling. Therefore, when you look at even our parliamentarians, I don't think if we have such quality leadership that we are looking for in our the quality of our leaders. And you realize that most of them have come in through such a certain political bargaining process. And sometimes you will be disappointed the fact that you bring in someone whom you have been forced to bring him on board as a representative and represents you in a weird way. For example, I mean, where on earth do you find over 390 or 400 members of parliament debating on Financial Act, and then the president just says, no, I think you guys have done the wrong thing? Who are the ones who are representing us then? If them themselves could not say, no, this is not right, Mr. President, we are not approving it. So there are quite a number of significant histories that we know very well prove that the leaders we take to parliament are not legitimate leaders, credible leaders, and people who have the people where they represent at heart. So it's all about politics.
Well, Dr. Just, one would think that an election in Kenya by now ought to be an activity of the people, the constituents of that ward, of that constituency, where they come together and analyze the people who are interested in serving them, and they decide based on these qualities of leadership that we as a community uphold, this is the right person we think ought to go and represent us. Because as you rightly say, when you go to the national or the county assembly, you are representative of that specific constituency you're coming from. But that's not what we are reflecting now, because you see, even the president himself got involved in this negotiated democracy, especially in the case of Baringo. And we've seen mobilization of
and
Banisa as well. And we've seen mobilization of a government machinery toward this, especially Berenol and Kasipu and other places. But what is alarming is that where we have seen that heavy presence of the government specifically, because I believe the opposition is the people. These are the people who call themselves the opposition, are just jilted lovers, if you ask me. It's a coalition of the rejected. Where we have seen heavy presence of them, it has been marked by violence. And I speak this because I've compared Mbeere North, Narok recently, with Kariobangi. In Kariobangi, we've not had instances of reported violence because we've not held any heavy presence by the government or those whom you're referring to as the opposition. So what is to be made of that?
I think one crucial thing is that where matters of violence occurs, there is always incitement from either parties. And the issue is, how do we gain the momentum of securing that seat is the question that comes. And the people who are used are generally the public. And these are grouped either this other side or the other side. But the incitement comes from either the government officials who have been given that mandate to go and oversee that election, or who think that if that seat is lost, there will be an implication for them. That's one. Secondly, the issue of who becomes what in the by-election is not actually the point that at the moment is in the domain of the ruling wings. It's about whom do we want to place there? How do we stamp our authority on the ground to show that we are indeed the people who are in control of that particular area? And when you look at it very keenly, the public have no control over it. And the legitimacy of the whole process now is already in question before we get to even the real day of the voting. And one of the things that recently I documented on the newspapers, I sometimes put some opinions on the newspaper, is the fact that we never give a chance to the public. We call it democratic process, but is really our elections a democratic process? It's a question that one will always ask. And when you look at it and reflect on it very keenly, you realize that we do not have actually legitimate democratic process in any of our elections.
What makes the legitimacy of this process then be questioned?
Yes, the question is, what makes it is that we must have a transparent process, non-involvement of the leadership of the present powers. Thirdly, the will of the people being respected. Where did you find the will of people being respected? There are also a lot of government machineries that are being used, which actually makes it more illegitimate.
Like what? For example, Deputy President, we can say it, Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has been in Mbeere North for the last 60 days. We have seen the Embu County Governor, Cecil Mbarire, out on the campaigns. We've seen CS Geoffrey Roku also there. We can't really count Rigathi Gachagua because he's not in leadership.
No, he isn't.
We've also seen the Speaker of the National Assembly out in Western Kenya campaigning quite overtly. We have seen Mombasa Governor, we've seen Homa Bay Governor, we've seen Kilifi Governor.
Yes.
We've seen across board, we've seen everybody throw their support in one way or another. Are we saying that this action by these individuals compromises the integrity of the process because they're already in a particular position?
There are two issues in terms of their action and the implication of the Constitution. Ideally, because of separation of powers, speakers of national assemblies are not supposed to be in political
constitutionally.
Constitutionally, yes. So that one we keep it there. Public service demands that any public officer should not be engaged in politics, particularly political campaigns and all other things. And therefore, constitutionally, again, those ones are bad. And of course, the deputy president and the president and the governors are slightly exempted from that process because their seat is politically, it's a political seat or a process that by constitution, they are not very much, the term is not dictated to them which bars them away from politics. But again, because of their power, there's what is called the power of influence and the power of intimidation. These are the two things that people look at. Are they intimidating people? Are they enticing people? Because there are quite a number of goodies that they talk about which has not been happening before. And that is not in the national budget or it is not in the government plan. And someone just goes there and say, we will do this, we will do this, and yet it is not from the usual system of governance and the usual system of resource allocation within the country. So the illegitimacy comes from the fact that they are not supposed to be there. Two, they are in power and therefore they will be intimidating voters, and they also entice voters, because if you are told this is what we will do for you, and I know very well it's unlikely for them to do that, that itself compromises the whole process and the legitimacy of the whole process occurs.
And Dr. when all these things happen, we have the body that is there to ensure that everything on these elections actually do follow the law. And there is a process where when you look at the government getting out there campaigning for an individual against the law, one would hope that IEBC would rein in on that candidate and be able to speak to them, because the law stops cabinet secretaries who are not politicians, one would say, quote unquote. But we see an IEBC that is quiet. We look at violence that is happening in various areas of the country, and one would hope that IEBC would rein in with the power that they have to ensure that these cases are no longer seen. But IEBC is seemingly quiet. And as we sit today, one asks the question, is IEBC compromised? Is IEBC a toothless dog? Or do they just not want to work?
It is not actually IEBC alone. I will get to IEBC. When it comes to issues of conflict, there are constitutional officers that are mandated to look into people who are crossing the red line. For example, you hear Wetangula threatening what is his name?
Governor
Natembeya. You had the deputy president. Yes. So there are constitutional officers that are mandated to summon these people. But will they do that? Are they actually independent? That comes to the cohesion and
NCIC.
Yes, NCIC, National Cohesion and
Integration
Commission. We have not had anything from them. That's one challenge. The fact that the people who have spoken are people who are in power and they are leaders in this country, seems they have all their way to do anything they want. Come to IEBC. The word I is irrelevant.
Independent. Oh.
It is irrelevant.
It is not independent.
It is not independent.
Irrelevant.
And therefore, there is no need, and I repeatedly said in many conversations that the word IEBC is the word I is just trying to tell each other something that is not of any value. You say IEBC and yet it is not independent. The independence is the fact that they rely on wholly the exchequer's money. I mean, they have no clear, they must be allocated money or they can be denied, number one. Number two, their appointment process. You know, I mean, if the president decides to appoint you, there's no way that you can go against your employer. So I did not understood at any one time when we are appointing the commissioners, which took a lot of time in bringing them on board. And we thought probably if they are brought on board through a legitimate process, which by virtue of the arrangement they put in place, it looked like legitimate. But I don't think if influence was exceptional out of that particular process. And therefore, IBC is toothless, as you said, simply because, one, they do not have mandate to arrest anyone first. And therefore, they will have to use the existing executive machineries. And now the executive machineries are commanded by the people who have given out that directives, number one. Number two, IBC, the fact that they are very new, they have a lot of caution in taking any action. You remember the Cherera Force. I mean, if someone has otherwise opinion, a different opinion from some few commissioners, they will lose their seat. The fact that Cherera 4 were punished, and I tend to think, lawfully or unlawfully, the process was not called for. Because the fact that the other process of the election has already passed, and these are officers holding constitutional offices, there was no need of punishing them. So my reflection on IBC is that I think the new team are still understanding how to work in the complex political situation from complex political arenas.
How? I'm sorry. The commissioners on this, the commissioners on this team.
Yes.
One of the commissioners, for crying out loud, is the former registrar of political parties, very well versed about political issues in the country. They registered political parties for a legal mind, for goodness sake. How can we say that? Okay, well, they're still brand new. They don't know how to carry on. They've lived in Kenya. They've been here. They've seen how things operate. They told panels that they were worth their weight in salt.
And there was a seemingly very exhaustive and deliberate process of screening, assessment, and appointment. Now, so that the idea was that we could have competent people who will not come into office and say, I need some time to, understand
get things out.
I need to be cautious because we are led by a constitution. And the Constitution defines how each and every this independent body ought to act. EACC, NCIC, police, everybody, IEBC as well. And once you assume office as a commissioner or otherwise, you have the functions, duties, and responsibilities. We cannot say, I think it would be a lame excuse to say, but that they are more led by their loyalty and commitment to the employer is not the president. The employer is the people of Kenya. They hold what you call the fidelity. They need to be more responsible to the people that they serve.
Is that in writing? I ride on the fact that if we respect the Constitution, in any level of our actions, then we don't have questions over what we are talking about. The issue is Kenya is not scarce of any constitutional rules. Laws are plenty. And sometimes they override each other. Recently, you remember the issue of the National Police Service Commission as well as the National Police Service. The fact that the Inspector General and 2 Deputy Inspector Generals are commissioners of the National Police Service Commission did not even give any click on how they should manage the process. And the commission was behaving separately outside the legal process. So complexity of the dispensation of constitutional mandates comes in when there are quite a number of interference from either the executive or the fact that they remain silent in following the rule of law. For example, let me give you an example of the Mbere UDA party aspirant. Yeah? And this particular candidate, there's a question of integrity. But when you look at keenly what our constitution says about integrity issues, and whether you are in a position to be elected or you're elected into a political position, is that our constitution puts it areas of, there are quite a number of gray areas in our constitution, whereby once you are once you are sentenced or convicted or prosecuted, and you have, if it is less than 6 months, that's fine. There's no problem. You are still allowed to contest for your seat. But more than 6 months, and you go and appeal, as long as that appeal stands, there's nothing, according to our constitution, that bars you from joining.
Dr. Are you surprised that that specific fact that the grey area that does exist in law, one would have hoped that members of parliament would have seen that they would have made sure that those who have a dent in their credentials, that is something they would have fixed. But that would never be fixed because they know that they are culprits themselves. That means at the end of the day, in every election that we have, Kenya is likely to always have individuals who are not fit to run for these offices, running for these offices because of that grey area that does exist in law. But people who ought to change it are members of parliament who have these dents themselves in the first place.
Absolutely, you have put it very well. You know, our problem is our parliamentarians, our legislatures. And what is it that they have a problem with? To start with, our 2010 constitution clearly dictates that any member of parliament position must be a degree holder. And do you know that one has been suppressed for three consecutive elections? That they have postponed it, and there's no legislation to guide that they have put in place, with exception of the governor's position. Similarly, anything that links directly to politicians, members of parliament are not interested in legislating those issues and putting records straight. And therefore, our challenge generally overall in enforcing the existing laws is coming from legislatures.
No,
yes, we are not disputing that, because some of the things that we hear are not very clear in normal practice, is the fact that the 2010 constitution, which was a robust constitution with quite a number of rules that will have guided this nation to the right path, are suppressed because of the interests of politicians. Therefore, politicians who are in parliament, particularly the ones in current political leadership, they will never ever push for anything that they know will going to work against them. And that's why the NGTC, the National Government Constituency Development Fund, has been defined several times as unconstitutional, but it still rules within the corridors of Parliament to make sure that it becomes legit. Now, so I think it's about how we are and how patriotic we want to be, and the legacy any politician or any ruling party will want to live in this country.
Let's look at the voter, because at the end of the day, the power belongs to the people, we the people, as the Constitution opines clearly. The ballot will be cast on Thursday for these particular by-elections. So we could have a conversation around the suspension of competency from the National Assembly, the violation of our Constitution by all the would-be leaders by allowing themselves to participate in these campaigns. But at the end of the day, the decision will be made by that voter who will come out and vote from Banisa, Malava, Kariobangi, Mbere North, and every other place, Narok, and every other place as well. To what extent does the voter now stand to make the final decision independently, having listened, having been given tokens, having been, as you say, pressured by what you'd call this commanding presence of government. To what extent does the voter still hold the final authority of determining how it will be on Thursday?
And does it matter at the end
Yes,
of the day?
it is indeed. And what I will have said in that particular aspect is that first and foremost, the ultimate decision lies with the voter holder, the person who has his voter registration. But if we don't exclude the issue of coercing, intimidations, and of course the fact that our political architecture is in a manner that people go on political or tribal lineage. Our politics is not purely politics. Sometimes we look at issues from the perspective of who is this particular person to me and how do we relate to this particular person. Particularly areas where clanisms dominate, it becomes very difficult for one to decide the right person. What happens is that the clan influence or the where you emerge from influences whom you want to vote for. When the issue of Gen Z started, we thought Kenyans will have a mindset that will not look at any tribal thing, will not look at any relative, but they will look objectively into the person's ability to pick up the mantle of leadership. And that looks like a drama that just happened that particular time, and it has diminished completely because the young people who are being used to cause violence or the ones who are coming out during the rallies to either applaud someone or suppress the other person's will are still the young people. They are not old people who actually go there. They just dominate, behind the boardroom discussions. But the people who are on the front line, and we had hope on, are our young people, the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
But looks like that will never happen now. Therefore, my thinking is that Kenyans youth are unemployed. They have a lot of issues related to their own personal needs, and that makes them to depend on handouts. And sometimes they may not decide against what they have agreed to do because of the exchange of handouts. So there are quite a number of individual challenges that people experience when also making a decision on their own voter's card and who to vote for. So again, the hype and the political rallies from people who are respected, so-called respected by the young people in the leadership arena, gives them again a challenge to go against their request or their will. Therefore, the youth have quite a number of pressure that forces them to do what they probably might not have intended to do it.
Dr. I want to look at the situation that we see right now in the by-elections. So you've spoken in terms of pressure, coercion, intimidation, right? In a by-election. We've seen violence in a by-election. You've seen the law being broken in a by-election. As we approach 2027, don't you think if we let all these things persist right now, in 2027, we're giving credence to more of these being seen at that point? And therefore, there is need for Kenyans, first of all, to think about 2027, think about the future and how to stop the mess right now. The security agencies and every other agency that is in this by-election period to do right. Because if we permit the mess to persist right now, 2027, we might find ourselves in a position that is not nice.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. 2027 is something to watch as we look at the by-election at the moment. What is very significant is the fact that those who are breaking the laws are not brought to book. And that will give us a leeway for people to do whatever they want in 2027. Therefore, the lessons learned from this by-election should be reflected on, and then when the election is over, all those people who have crossed the boundaries and refused to maintain and upheld the constitution should be brought to book. Who will do that?
Will they though? And this is the question that I find myself battling with. That do you think that the hundreds and thousands of people over the last 6 months who have been, wined and dined with wherever these resources have come from, do they have a fundamental understanding of what is actually being done to them? Because they are being used for a political process to ensure that a certain individual sits in a position of power, whereby then they don't necessarily do anything to change the life course of this common man. If anything, they do everything to make sure that they remain in that position and that they become more wealthy. That's the truth. Color it whatever you want to color it, but that's just how it is. Are people aware that they are being used as the currency to buy these positions? Because if people are not aware, we're going to be doing this same horse and pony show, rather dog and pony show, for the next, I don't know how long. So until there is, and I guess it's a more recent phrase, are people really woke to the reality of what's going on here? Because it's serious. We talk about it as though, people came in and they gave sweets. This is serious. That a sitting governor will give sweets to individuals in a county with the expectation that they will vote in a particular way, which is abhorrent. But then the people who receive these sweets, like what Dennis was saying, the people who allow themselves to be used for violence, the people who accept these sweets and then go to the ballot box and make a decision based on confectionery, there's a problem. But until there's the realization and then say, I'm not going to allow myself to be used in this manner anymore, that's when we're going to see the dial change. Because we can talk about hope and whatever, but it is not going to change that, Terry. So long as there's no realization that this is what is actually happening to people, it's not going to change. It'll be a sweet today, it'll be a motorcycle tomorrow at State House, which, by the way, what happened to those? Or it'll be something else. This is the reality of our times. And so we are woke to what is actually happening. There will be no change. It's painful to hear, but that's the truth. How can we change that?
First, I think we have dominance of social media, which we have seen that Kenyans actually understand what is going on. Because one of the highest consumers of social media in Africa is actually Kenya. Yes. And that means then we have a platform that people can be educated on and understand. But is it really lack of understanding and knowledge on what is going on? Or it is just the cultural behaviors of our society whereby they don't care about tomorrow and people look at what they gain now today? Because I realized in 2022 in the political landscape of Mandera County, the former governor just opted to form his own party and come up with his own candidate and use a lot of money to bring on board candidates of his own choice. And of course, people were given handouts and a lot of money, spending over 2 billion on a governor's campaign. Nobody asked where does that money comes from. I think it's all about our people, the society itself, who have developed a don't care attitude. And I think is it because of the pressure of livelihood that has completely diminished and people have now opted to live on handouts? Because if you go, for example, to one of the counties and you are assumed to be either in a political position or you have once vied for a political position, people will rush and chase you looking for handouts. Why should people look for handouts and yet they know very well that handout will not take them anywhere and it's not something that will going to last? So the question that we always ask our people is that indeed, if you are given what you can use today. And after 5 years is when again someone will come and start giving you again another handout. How long will you want to stay in such a situation? People will never answer the question. Number two, you realize that people talk about bigger things that sometimes being informed by the politicians. They come to the people and say, we will do A, B, C, D for you. And you know very well, for example, a member of parliament's job is only 3.
Yeah.
Legislative, representation, and oversight. Any other development thing you talk about on the ground and tell people is a lie. And therefore, if you are lying already and you are also buying those lies, then I think it is all about the society, the leadership, and all that surrounds all those other factors.
Well, granted, Dr. that people do understand nowadays the role of the various positions that exist, elective positions more precisely. But that does not shield away people from being hoodwinked, Even the CSAs have come out and said, now is the right time for you guys to have water, because you're just about to vote and you want you to vote a certain way. Now is the right time for us to extend tarmac in your region where you have never had tarmac before, because we want you to vote a certain way. But I am not yet giving up on the voter. I am not yet giving up on us, we, the people, because it will take us to liberate this country. It will take each and every vote to be casted and to mean something for the change to manifest. So we could talk about the problems that exist. And nothing speaks to that our constitution is weak. We are saying our constitution is very supreme and very strong. It's just that the persons we have in these various positions and offices are the ones who choose to suspend or apply the constitution
when they need
when
it suits them. So voters do have a few hours, a few days to think, especially this by-election, because this is the closest we are to seeing how the IBC will manage themselves, how the candidates will manage themselves, and how the voters will behave. But I want to perhaps pick your mind on, do you think, because the revolution for change began in 2024, it is on, people just, have been changing tact, but we are hoping to have that expression of the need for change on the ballot, especially this coming up on Thursday. But do you feel that we could have a bit of a reflection of a shift from people being influenced heavily during the campaigns and finally choosing to vote as they should and as they want?
It is our wish that perhaps such shift can occur. One thing that I always tell our young people is that they have expressed their will last time. Can they action it? Because it is them to decide. And I think the only time they can speak to the leaders who think that they have in control of everything, particularly parliamentarians who are thinking that they are the owners of the people, I tend to think if our young people vote as per their wish and avoid all those coercion that has happened during the rally or the campaigns, and show the leadership that it is indeed us who make decision on who becomes our leader, then I think that will be an eye-opener for all the politicians, including the ruling party, on how they want to dispense their political dispensation for 2027. And therefore, my wish is that the people of Mbere, the people of Banisa, the people of Malaba, and the people of Baringo, the few I remember at the moment, will go into, and the rest basically, will go into bring in leaders of their choice by showing those who are battling on the political grounds that no, you could do everything or anything you want, but it is us who make that decision. And therefore, mine is to say that they are the ones to shape the dynamics of our politics for 2027.
How big is the pressure for IEBC to deliver on these by-elections? Why? Because you look at the formation of IEBC, one would say the IEBC that we have today is a negotiated commission between political parties based off their formation. You remember NADCO report and Raila Odinga giving his proposal, Kalonzo Musyoka at some point even going to court because Koki Muli appearing on that commission and Ethekon himself being appointed, and the entire ecosystem around IEBC. You can see even the Standard has spoken to that today. And as we talk about the commission that we have today, many ask the question, do we trust this commission to deliver, especially having seen the abrogation of the law that do exist in the commission that is quiet? And if Kenyans today do not trust IEBC, how will 2027 look like? Do Kenyans believe and trust that IEBC will deliver is the question.
Trust is a different issue, and IEBC and how they will behave is a new issue. Because, these are new commissioners. Kenyans are hoping, beside all those dents surrounds them, Kenyans are hoping that IEBC will be delivering free and fair election. And the difference between the previous IEBC commissioners and these particular ones is that, first, they are all new, number one. Number two, they have a mini election before the major election, meaning that the way they behave, the way they will approach the current by-elections, and the outcome of the current elections satisfactory process that people will going to receive from them will guide whether these particular persons will going to deliver free and fair election in 2027. And therefore, they have a litmus test, which is the by-elections. If they misbehave in this by-election and they are not very clear in their role as a referee for the process of electioneering, then quite a number of things are likely to happen. One, people might not even wait for them to get to 2027 elections. We will protest and contest all those commissioners to be out of office. We better stay without commissioners than having people who are already predetermined on whom they want to bring in leadership.
And what happens to the 2027 elections without IEBC?
If we have stayed 2 years without commissioners, that which was already unconstitutional.
But we didn't have an election in those two years.
We had elections. How many elections?
A general election.
Yes, general election.
Yeah.
So there could be a lot of other factors. When I'm saying that we may not get them there, probably not removing them or probably out of the office because of other constitutional crises, but the fact that they have not behaved the way they are expected to, then we will going to do all the necessary things. Kenyans must decide on how they will want their elections and leadership in this country must be defined. That does not translate to conflict.
However, Daktari, on that point that you raise about suspending or getting the commissioners out, the role of the IBC is merely clerical.
Correct.
They do not vote, they do not influence how the vote ought to be. So we must be careful not to plunge ourselves into a constitutional crisis and try to interfere, because levels of interference vary when it comes to an election. We have to be very careful not to interfere with the general election of 2027, because that is what the people are really working towards, to change this country. So if the clerks, because even the IBC chair is a mere clerk, is almost supposed to be the returning office of the presidential vote, if they are not working, there has to be disciplinary mechanisms within the IBC to get rid of any commissioner who misbehaves, to avoid developing in the Cherera 4 situation that you're talking about. So I think there we have to align ourselves accordingly with the constitution and the bylaws within the IBC as it functions.
No, I totally agree with you. We will not want to go into constitutional crisis. And Kenyans indeed are looking forward to 2027 election. It matters to them. With everything that has happened in 2024, and of course their expectation and perspective of the current by-elections, Of course, we will never want to be in a constitutional crisis. I always tell people, better have a bad government than no government. Because I've worked in around 21 countries that has gone into conflict. And the situation in those countries, Sudan is an example. Somalia is an example. I mean, 36 years down the line, Somalia is unruly.
Right.
There's nothing going on. And therefore, I think there are no mechanisms that are in place, for example, on issues related to commissioners, being punished. The issue of commissioners being punished is issues related to tribunals. And therefore, that is again another process, and it comes from the executive.
Indeed. I think that there's a lot of work to be done, and I think that this rests on on then Kenyans' knowledge. Knowledge and understanding gives you power.
Absolutely.
And once you have that, then you're really aware of what you can or cannot do. And it's clear that there seems to be the folks fighting tooth and nail to ensure that Kenyans then don't have that knowledge. These conversations continue, and thank you for being part of this one this morning. Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan is a governance expert, has been here with us this morning to look into some of these issues. The by-election 2027, rather the by-election 2025 is an eye into 2027, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Asante Sana for being here this morning.
Thank
we
you.
continue with these conversations at 8:08. Good morning.
This is the